Resident Evil. We've all heard the name but never watched the movies. Well, today, we'll be fixing that by going over all the live-action movies in chronological order from start to finish. This video will contain all 7 movies, and when I tell you that it has everything you want in it, I'm not joking. From action to zombies to frickin' explosions and everything else in between, this recap will not miss a single detail. So without further ado, make sure you've got some popcorn next to you, and as always, enjoy the recap. Resident Evil opens with a narration revealing that by the 21st century, the Umbrella Corporation has become the largest commercial entity in the US, turning into the leading supplier of computer technology and healthcare. But unknown to its employees, the massive profits are generated by military technology, genetic experimentation, and viral weaponry. At the Umbrella Corporation, a masked man steals their viruses and releases one before leaving. The virus reaches the workers' area through vents and the dogs start barking hysterically. The sensors detect the T-virus's increasing concentration in the air, lock all the company's doors, and then turn on the water sprinklers, prompting all the scientists to cover the computers and experiments in the lab. The employees are locked in their cabins, elevators, and labs with no one responding to their calls. The scientists realize that the lab is sealed and water is starting to accumulate, so they try to break the glass walls. Meanwhile, the elevator falls and gets stuck with a narrow opening, while the people in the working cabins suffocate to death because of excess halon. A woman tries to squeeze out of the opening, but the elevator falls before getting pulled up again, resulting in her death. Elsewhere, a woman named Alice wakes up in a bathroom, shocked to find herself there, but struggles to get up. After gathering strength to walk, she looks at her reflection and notices a scar on her shoulder, which triggers a flashback of her fainting in the washroom. She checks the drawers full of white clothes and is shocked to find weapons in one of the drawers. She steps out of the room and finds her wedding photo in the living room, but she remembers nothing, so she steps outside trying to see if there is anyone else there besides her. She finds no humans and gets scared by a bunch of crows before harsh wind starts to blow, and a man named Matt Addison pulls her back inside the mansion. However, it's too late as many soldiers enter the mansion and arrest Matt, while a soldier orders Alice to report to him, but she is confused by the situation. The head of the soldiers, named James One Shade, orders both of them to be taken to the hive, and they all step into a secret room. A female soldier named Rain Ocampo heads down to fix the power, and they all move to a train. During their journey, as they try to shut the door, a man falls into the train cabin, and seeing him triggers Alice's flashback, making her realize that this man, Spence Park, is her husband. However, Spence is suffering from memory loss just like Alice. The soldiers stay on guard until they take the 3 to a safe place. Alice holds one's gun and demands that he tell them what's going on. So he explains that they all work for the Umbrella Corporation, and the mansion right above them is an emergency entrance to the hive. He tells Alice that she is a security agent assigned here to protect that entrance and reveals that her marriage is a part of her cover. Spence questions what the hive is, so they reveal that their mansion is located in Raccoon City, while the hive is a top-secret research facility that houses 500 scientists and technicians, located miles beneath Raccoon City. Spence questions why he can't remember anything, so one informs him that the hive has computer-controlled defense mechanisms. He explains that a gas was released in the house, which can cause amnesia. They reach the hive and find that halon concentration has dissipated. One reveals that the Red Queen is the computer that controls the hive, and they soon reach the labs, which are flooded. One orders Rain and another soldier named JD to check the flooding, while Kaplan is told to find an alternate route to the Red Queen. The 3 wonder what happened here, and one explains that 5 hours ago, the Red Queen went homicidal, killing everyone in the building. He reveals that his team was dispatched to shut her down as they suspect outside interference. The 3 are alarmed to see a dead body floating in the flood, and Spence offers his jacket to Alice, making her remember their intimate moments. So she questions if Spence remembers anything from his past, but Spence denies having any memory. Rain comes and reports that the entire floor is flooded, so they take an alternate route, but once they leave, the floating dead body opens its eyes. The team is on full alert and moves to Dining Hall B, where one orders the team to search for survivors after realizing that no halon was released in this room. Alice walks around and finds a locked compartment with a mutated organism inside, but one tells her not to wander off. She tells him that seeing the condition of this place, she doesn't want her memories back, and one sympathizes with her. They finally reach the lowest level, the Red Queen's chamber, and unlock the gate. One heads in alone when suddenly all the lights turn on, but Kaplan tells him that the lights are automated, so he shouldn't worry. He heads further in and puts the transmitter on a locked gate, which Kaplan unlocks, and one clears the area and asks his team to bring the equipment. Kaplan explains that their equipment delivers a massive electric charge, forcing the main system to reboot. However, once 3 soldiers head inside, the Red Queen locks them along with one, while Kaplan tries to open the doors. The Red Queen releases a beam that cuts everything in its way, resulting in the death of all 3 soldiers, leaving only one alive.
Open the door! I'm trying!
Next, the beam shapes itself like a grid and cuts one into pieces, and Kaplan is just a minute late as he opens the door and watches one get cut. Kaplan tells them that they have to step in and complete the mission, but Spence refuses, so Kaplan heads in alone. However, Alice joins him, and they both make it to the center of the Red Queen where they plug in the device, but they are caught by the camera, which summons the holographic representation of the Red Queen modeled after the programmer's daughter. She tells Kaplan that they will all die, but he shuts the system off, causing all the locked doors to open up. On the other hand, Rain, JD and Matt are guarding the entrance to Dining Hall B when they hear an odd sound, and Rain volunteers to search the area. She finds a woman in a bad condition and tells JD that they have a survivor. Rain goes to offer support, but the woman bites Rain, making JD shoot her. However, the woman still stands after 5 shots, so Rain uses her machine gun on her. The soldiers gather around after hearing the shooting sound, but they notice that the woman has disappeared. Matt points out that the blood is coagulated, which only happens after death, and while doing so, he picks up the keys of his cuffs. Alice and Kaplan show up and reveal that the rest of the team died, but before the soldiers can react, a large number of zombies surround them. They open fire and the bullets hit large containers of gas, resulting in a huge explosion, which makes Alice fall and triggers another flashback where a woman tells Alice that she can get her access to the virus, as she knows all the security codes. Matt manages to open his cuffs while Kaplan tries to open the gate, but keeps getting the security code wrong because of shaky hands. JD puts in the code, but the swarm of zombies on the other side of the door pulls him in, eventually eating him up. Rain tries to save him, but a zombie bites her and the rest of the team pulls her back. The team heads to the Red Queen's chambers and discover that the dead bodies of one as well as the other soldiers have vanished. But Rain tells them to focus on the problem at hand. She tells Kaplan that when he cut the power, he unlocked the doors and let those people out. Alice then goes inside a secret lab to find many cages broken, and suddenly a zombie dog covered in flesh comes out and chases her. She locks him inside the lab, but the resurrected body of one attacks her, and she quickly knocks him out. She is impressed by her fighting skills and quickly takes one's gun. The zombie dog breaks the window to jump into the room, so she quickly goes back inside the lab only to find multiple zombie dogs there, but she manages to shoot them all. Meanwhile, Matt goes to the workers' cabins and finds Dr. Lisa's desk and goes through her things, only to be attacked by her zombie form, which tries to bite him. However, Alice arrives and saves him, but looking at Lisa's face makes her realize that Lisa was the woman who asked Alice for access to the virus. Matt reveals that Lisa is his sister, and because he couldn't infiltrate the hive, he sent her here to gather evidence of research being conducted and expose Umbrella. He explains that Umbrella was doing viral genetic research, and Lisa was supposed to steal a sample because she had a contact who knew all surveillance codes of the hive. After a while, Alice and Matt rush to the control room and quickly lock the door to find Rain there as well. Spence thinks that backup will arrive soon if they send a signal, but Rain reveals that all of the doors will close in an hour and they must escape before it happens. Alice says the Red Queen might be their only way out and turns her back on with the help of Kaplan. They ask her about the T-virus, so she explains it has highly profitable military applications, as even after death the virus reanimates the body. She explains that subjects have no intelligence and only have the need to feed. Upon asking, the Red Queen reveals that severing the top of the spinal column or brain trauma can result in their deaths. She explains that she took grave steps to prevent the virus from getting out of the hive, as one bite or even a scratch can transmit the virus. They ask her to help them find a way out and rig a remote shutdown to ensure her cooperation. So she advises them to escape through the utility tunnels, but Spence thinks they are circling in the same place and refuses to follow. However, they are ambushed by the zombies, and Alice tells them to move up to the pipes while she breaks the zombies' necks. Most manage to go up, but Kaplan is bitten and separated from the group, while a reanimated JD bites Rain before she shoots him dead. Most of them make it to the other side, but the pipe breaks, causing Kaplan to fall into the swarm of zombies. Alice shoots the zombies above Kaplan, which gives him enough time to crawl the pipe again, but he gets separated from the rest of the group and tells them to leave without him. Rain vomits, and her vision becomes blurry as they pass through a lab. However, being in the lab triggers a flashback for Alice, who realizes that an antivirus was made inside this lab and starts to search for it. She tells Matt that she was Lisa's contact but doesn't remember what happened. Alice doesn't find the antivirus as it was stolen, but Spence suddenly gets his memories back, making him realize that he knew about Alice wanting to bring the Umbrella Corporation down. And he was the one who stole the antivirus before spreading the T-virus. He had managed to escape before the Red Queen closed all the gates. Spence quickly grabs a gun and points it at Alice, telling her that she can still escape with him, as they would have a happy life above the hive because he has gathered large sums of money. Matt jumps in, but Spence tells him to back off, as he won't hesitate to shoot him. He tells Alice that she worked for the corporation, and just because she made a failed attempt to bring it down, it doesn't free her from guilt. He tells them that the antivirus is on the train they found him on. But before he can do anything else, a zombie emerges and bites Spence's neck. However, he manages to shoot the zombie and then escapes the lab by locking the rest inside it. Spence makes it to the other side and is about to inject the antivirus into his veins when a T-virus mutated creature called Liquor attacks and kills him. The Red Queen explains that in earlier experiments the T-virus was injected into living tissues but had unstable results as it kept mutating. She explains that the Liquor will mutate even more because it is fed on fresh DNA. She tells them she didn't expect any of them to make it this far without infection, so she was saving the Liquor for the last. The Red Queen says that she can give them the code to open the lab's door, but needs them to kill Rain first as she is infected. Rain tells them to kill her as the Liquor starts attacking the reinforced glass, but a power outage occurs. Kaplan appears, saying he shut down the Red Queen to open the lab doors. They head to the train and Alice tells them to start the train while she gets the antivirus. However, before she can do it, a reanimated Spence attacks her, so she severs his head off. Alice drops her ring and gets inside the train where she injects the antivirus into Rain and Kaplan.
I'm not dead yet.
The Liquor attacks them, clawing Matt and breaking the train door to pull Kaplan out before devouring him. Matt quickly locks the doors, but the Liquor manages to break them. Alice repeatedly shoots him in the head, but it doesn't work, so Matt uses a pile of pipes to attack him. Alice uses one of the pipes to pierce the Liquor's tongue and trap him, but before Matt can open the doors, a zombified Rain attacks Matt, as the antivirus failed to cure her. Matt shoots Rain before opening the doors, which results in the Liquor falling onto the railway track and getting dragged against it till it catches fire. They manage to reach the mansion just in time, and Alice falls to her knees, thinking she failed, but Matt comforts her by saying that they finally have enough proof to bring the corporation down. However, Matt's wound begins mutating, and before Alice can give him the antivirus, various Umbrella scientists capture them despite their resistance. They reveal that they will put Matt in the Nemesis program while Alice is quarantined under close observation, and a full series of blood tests is done on her. She is taken to the Raccoon City facility, and a scientist reveals that the hive is to be reopened for an investigation into the incident. When Alice wakes up, she finds herself strapped to an examination table. She painfully frees herself and screams for someone to let her out, but when she gets no response, she uses a needle to unlock the door. The hallways are empty, and she escapes but finds an apocalyptic state of Raccoon City. She finds the city in ruins and grabs a shotgun from an abandoned police car for defense. Resident Evil Apocalypse starts with Alice narrating that she was the head of security at the hive, and after escaping with Matt, she believed that they had survived the horror, but she was wrong. A flashback shows a news channel reporting the weather conditions in Raccoon City, where the reporter Terry Morales explains that it will be a beautiful day. However, unknown to them, a group of scientists gather at the opening of the hive and order the military team to advance into the gate. Once they enter the hive, the T-virus level increases, and before they can do anything, the Liquor attacks them and escapes. The Umbrella Corporation dispatches a large team to gather all the highest level 6 category scientists and evacuate them from the city. These include Dr. Charles Ashford, who instructs them to bring his daughter from school. They explain that another car has been dispatched to pick her up, but the daughter's car gets into an accident. 13 hours later, a woman named Jill Valentine turns on the radio to hear various teams calling for backup while the news on TV reports a wave of unexplained killings, asking all off-duty officers to report immediately. Valentine picks up her gun and heads to the station, which is infested with zombies, but she doesn't hesitate before killing them. She tells everyone to aim for the zombie's head and shoots the cuffs of a criminal, suggesting that people leave the town while they can. Meanwhile, a man wakes Alice from her induced coma, and she escapes the hospital to find the dystopian condition of the city. The Umbrella Corporation seals the entire city and leaves the Raven's Gate Bridge as the only way out, where a team is placed to ensure that the infected persons don't leave the city. The security calls for their head, Major Timothy Kane, to show him the swarm of people trying to escape the city, and he calls for reinforcements. Valentine reaches the gate, and she is called in by a sergeant named Peyton, who tells her they can use her help. Suddenly, a man turns into a zombie and bites Peyton before Valentine shoots him. Kane orders the gates to be sealed, which causes chaos, and people rush towards the gate. so he orders them to return to their homes, authorizing the use of ammunition on civilians who disobey. Valentine believes that they won't open fire, but the security shoots all the people near the gate, making everyone else rush back to the city. The security teams try to eliminate the zombies, but Kane reports to the headquarters that the suppression measures have failed, so they can no longer contain the virus. Dr. Ashford is told to get on the helicopter, but he refuses, saying he won't go without his daughter Angela. Kane tells him that she survived the crash but wasn't found anywhere, and now he can't let her out of the city as the risk of infection is too great, but Ashford refuses to leave. He heads inside his camp and tries to log into his ID for the Umbrella Corporation, but finds that his access has been revoked, so he hacks into the system. He searches for his daughter Angela and is shown CCTV video of the school where she is hiding, which is swarmed by zombies. He searches for someone alive in the city and is shown CCTV footage of Alice, who heads to a weapons store and quickly grabs some guns for herself. However, she feels a weird sensation and gets a flashback of the scientists inserting the T-virus in her to use her as a test subject. Ashford searches for other survivors and finds Valentine, Peyton, and reporter Terry, who head inside the church, unaware of the liquor nearby. They find another man hiding inside and are soon joined by the priest. However, they hear a weird noise and Valentine goes to investigate. She finds an infected woman in the room and soon finds a few dead bodies nearby, realizing that the priest has been feeding his infected sister. She is about to shoot her, but the priest moves in and the woman bites him. The people hear his scream and Terry tries to escape the church but finds a swarm of zombies when she opens the door. The rest quickly help her close the door, but the liquor is inside the church and attacks the man before devouring him. Valentine searches the area, finds an extra gun and opens fire at the liquor, but the liquor remains unharmed. She heads to the main hall of the church where she is pulled into a hiding spot by Peyton, who tells her that they are surrounded by 3 odd creatures. They are attacked by the liquor and soon they both realize that they are out of ammunition. It closes up on them when Alice jumps into the church using a motorcycle and throws it towards the liquor before shooting it, which sets it on fire. She shoots the chains holding the large cross in the church and squashes it under the cross. She also deals with the third liquor easily, and the others are surprised by her skills. Meanwhile, the forces fight the numerous zombies on the streets and Ashford witnesses this on CCTV. On the other hand, Alice tells them to leave the church, and Terry freaks out while they are passing through a graveyard. Alice explains that the zombies are bioweapons made by the Umbrella Corporation, but suddenly she notices that Peyton is wounded and puts her gun to his head, saying that his infection is spreading. However, Valentine says that she will deal with him herself if he turns into a zombie. Suddenly, a zombie comes out of a grave and tries to drag Terry in, and soon various zombies emerge to attack them, resulting in a fight, but Alice soon realizes that they are outnumbered, so she tells them to run. Meanwhile, Kane is told that the T-virus infection has reached critical levels, so he orders them to activate the Nemesis program, which stops the sedation given to a fully mutated Matt. Elsewhere, 3 people from Alpha Team named Carlos, Nikolai, and Yuri try to reach the base but realize that they've been abandoned. However, they suddenly hear the sound of a helicopter and realize that it will land nearby, so they head there. But the helicopter only drops 2 sealed boxes in the Raccoon City Hospital before leaving. Hoping they've dropped a radio that works, they go inside only to find empty boxes of high-technology weaponry. But Yuri turns into a zombie and attacks them, forcing them to shoot him. On the other hand, a group of 12 soldiers hide in a building with a man named Michael Guthrie as their sniper who can headshot any zombie who comes nearby. A man named L.J. Wade joins the team, but suddenly they face the Nemesis, who isn't affected by their bullets. Nemesis detects that there are 12 Special Tactics and Rescue Service agents, or STARS members, and 1 civilian in the building before throwing a large missile at them. The team deploy a defense formation, but Kane orders Nemesis to eliminate them, which results in it using its machine gun to kill all of them. Only LJ is left alive because he is not considered a threat by the Nemesis. Meanwhile, Alice and the group are walking when a telephone starts ringing, and Alice tells them to move quickly before the sound attracts zombies. However, no matter where they go, the telephones near them start ringing, so Alice eventually picks up the call, which is from Dr. Ashford, who presents a deal. Terry records Alice, explaining that Ashford wants them to save Angela and he will help them escape the city in return. Peyton agrees quickly, but Alice tells them that there will be no escape as the whole city will be sanitized by the morning. She explains that 5 kilotons of a nuclear device covered up as a tragic accident will be used to destroy the infection and all evidence of it. Alice suggests they somehow get out of the city before sunrise, so they get moving and soon reach the Arclay overpass, where she feels that something powerful is under the overpass. So Peyton goes to investigate, but the Nemesis opens fire on him, killing him instantly. Valentine shoots at him, But Alice realizes that this is the Nemesis and urges them to run. She steps forward and Kane is reported that Nemesis has identified Alice his primary target, so he activates its full power. Alice jumps down the overpass, opening fire at it, but it has no effect, so she runs while it chases and attacks her multiple times. She eventually moves through the garbage disposal and barely escapes, but realizes that she has been shot. Meanwhile, Valentine tries to repair a car while Terry expresses sadness about Peyton's death. But suddenly Peyton reanimates and attacks them, so Valentine shoots him before driving away. On the other hand, Carlos is injured and tells Nikolai that they have been abandoned when suddenly they get a phone call. Elsewhere, Valentine and Terry pick up LJ from a street before heading to the school and dividing to search the area. LJ goes inside a lab, but he is ambushed by a zombie, which Carlos kills before LJ can even react. Carlos asks him if Dr. Ashford sent him there and tells him to follow him as they are on the same team. Meanwhile, Terry walks into a classroom full of zombies who devour her. Valentine hears the screams and goes to find Angela there, who tells her that she can't help Terry now, so they should escape before the zombies return. They move to another room where the infected dogs attack them, so Valentine shoots them but is cornered and Nikolai jumps in to rescue them. Nikolai manages to help them escape but gets attacked by a dog before others join and kill him. However, the dogs follow the girls into the kitchen, so Valentine turns on all the gas before throwing in her lighter, but the lighter goes out. Alice shows up and throws a live fire inside the room. Just after Angela and Valentine escape, finally taking care of the zombie dogs, Alice notices that Angela is highly infected by the T-virus, so Angela reveals that the T-virus was created by her father to treat her genetic condition, and she requires an antivirus serum to avoid becoming a zombie. Carlos soon joins them, revealing that he was bitten 3 hours ago, so Alice gives him an antivirus. They get out of the school and get a call from Dr. Ashford, who tells them that the helicopter will be in the city hall, and it is the last evacuation before they detonate the city. He explains that the helicopter will be lightly guarded, and the group heads there. However, Kane shows up in Ashford's tent and shuts off his communication before going to deal with the situation. On the way to the helicopter, Valentine gives Alice Terry's recorder, which has been recording the events of the entire night, and tells Alice to record her story. They reach the city hall where Nikolai fights the guards outside and Alice deals with the sniper who is about to shoot them. Alice goes down and fights the guards, so the group eventually reaches the helicopter. Alice moves inside, but there she finds the same monitor that kept a check on her when she was captured by the Umbrella scientists, so she quickly orders the pilot to take off. However, Kane is inside the helicopter and puts a gun to Angela's head, saying that he was waiting for them. He cuffs the rest of the group, sends Angela to Ashford, who was forced back into the city, and then brings the Nemesis under the headlights. Kane tells Alice that he wants her to fight the Nemesis so he can discover which one of them is superior, but Alice refuses, so Kane shoots Dr. Ashford, killing him. Having no other option, the fight begins, and Alice has the upper hand as she dodges his attacks and lands various hits. However, the Nemesis tears a piece of steel from the building and attacks Alice with it, so Kane throws a sword to Alice for a fair fight. Alice picks herself up and notices a shard from where Nemesis tore off the steel, so she kicks him back till he is impaled. She suddenly realizes that Nemesis is Matt, who was mutated by Umbrella's experiments, so when Kane tells her to finish him, she refuses. Kane explains that she is a very valuable asset because she bonded with the T-virus on a cellular level, referring to her as evolution instead of mutation. Alice still refuses to work with him, so he tells the pilot to prepare for the takeoff, and for the sanitation to begin as soon as he orders. However, the Nemesis turns against Kane and shoots his soldiers, while Nikolai and Valentine free themselves and fight the soldiers. Seeing the situation, Kane orders to initiate the sanitation and angrily goes to the pilot, only to find LJ in his place. Helicopters surround the city hall and open fire on Alice. But Nemesis shoots a missile at a helicopter. The helicopters then burst into pieces, resulting in large sharp pieces that kills Nemesis. Alice becomes dizzy, but with the help of Valentine and Carlos she boards the helicopter, where she pushes Kane out of the helicopter for zombies to eat. Kane tries to shoot the zombies, but he is outnumbered, so he tries to make sure he doesn't turn into a zombie. But he runs out of bullets and is eventually bitten by reanimated Dr. Ashford. As the survivors escape, a nuclear warhead detonates over the city, and the resulting blast wave causes the helicopter to crash. This causes a metal pole to fly towards Angela, but Alice sacrifices herself and is impaled. 2 hours later, the crashed helicopter is found, but only Alice's burned body is discovered. Later, Terry's videotape is regarded as fake, and TV footage attributes the blast to a meltdown of the city's nuclear power plant. 3 weeks later, Alice wakes up in an Umbrella research facility, where a scientist reports that Alice's recovery is phenomenal, and her powers are developing at a high rate, but she is unable to articulate sounds. However, the scientist asks for her name, and that triggers a set of flashbacks, which reminds her that this scientist is the one who turned Matt into Nemesis. So she tells him her name, revealing that she has regained all her memories. She beats all the scientists in the room before going out, where she shows incredible abilities after telekinetically killing a security guard who is looking at her through the camera. However, she is outnumbered as she steps out of the facility. But to her surprise, Valentine and Carlos arrive disguised as Level 6 Umbrella workers and take Alice with them. The scientist, Dr. Alexander Isaacs, a top-ranking Umbrella employee, activates Program Alice, revealing that Alice's escape is part of Umbrella's plan. Resident Evil Extinction starts with Alice waking up in a bathroom feeling confused. She then heads to the bedroom where she finds a red dress waiting for her. She goes outside and finds herself in the inner chamber of the Red Queen, where she remembers James and other soldiers being cut by lasers. Suddenly, a laser beam moves towards her, but she avoids it by jumping high. However, it forms a grid and covers the entire room, so Alice escapes it by jumping into the vents. She moves inside for a while, then jumps out to realize that she has reached the Raccoon City Hospital. She finds a moving bed in the hallways and quickly pushes it, but a blade rises from the floor to cut the bed in half. She steps forward, thinking of ways to escape, but she is eventually killed by a bounding mine hidden on the floor that shoots her in the stomach. 3 scientists arrive, and one of them, Dr. Alexander Isaacs, orders the others to take a sample of Alice's blood before dumping her body. The scientists take her body from the underground facility to a deserted area through a secret tunnel and dump her body into a pit filled with dozens of other Alice clones. While innumerable zombies surround the facility, Alice narrates that the Umbrella Corporation failed to contain the T-virus within Raccoon City, and it soon spread worldwide, turning the world into a wasteland. The few survivors learned to stay on the move, avoiding major cities as the undead found them if they stayed in one place for too long. Just then, Alice hears a call for help from 7 people who are in need of medical attention, so she heads there only for a woman to beg Alice to check her baby. However, just as Alice puts down her gun to check the baby is revealed to be a doll, and the people hold Alice hostage. The Marauders try to abuse her, but Alice kicks one of them in the face, killing him instantly. This makes the others stun her, and when Alice regains consciousness, she is surrounded by infected dogs. Alice tries to run, but they follow her until she uncuffs herself using the key the Marauders had thrown to her, and kicks a dog into the electric wires, while tying one wire around the neck of another dog. 3 dogs pull the pole attached to the electric wires, causing a piece of the building to fall down, which pulls the Marauders into the battlefield. Alice uses this opportunity to move to the upper floor while the dogs eat the Marauders up. She grabs the remaining weapons and gets on the move again. Meanwhile, a convoy of survivors travels across the desert, led by Claire Redfield, while Raccoon City survivors Carlos and LJ travel across the country in search of supplies. On the other hand, the higher-ups of the Umbrella Corporation hold a meeting to discuss the increasing biohazard levels, where Dr. Isaacs reveals that the zombies have a hunger for flesh but do not require it, as they can remain in the world for decades. When asked about Project Alice, he reveals that he is using antibodies from her blood not only to combat the T-virus but also to reverse its effects so the zombies can be trained like animals. The officials are angry at no substantial progress with Project Alice, and order it to be the main focus in the research facility, threatening Isaacs to bring results or else they will have to replace him. Elsewhere, Alice reaches a gas station and kills the zombie near it before quickly checking the tuck shop, but she only finds a dead body surrounded by flies. She picks up a book and heads outside to see a crow feeding on the zombie she killed earlier. Back with Claire's convoy, they stop at a deserted motel, and Carlos and LJ step in to search the place. However, LJ is ambushed by a zombie and manages to kill it, but another zombie attacks him and bites him before he kills it. A woman named Betty then approaches and treats him, and he manages to hide the zombie bite from the convoy. On the other hand, Isaacs attempts to domesticate a zombie by injecting antibodies, which result in the zombie having memories and reasoning skills, but his joy is short-lived, as the undead gets frustrated at being unable to solve a problem and attacks the scientists while Isaacs escapes. Back with the convoy, Claire realizes that they're running out of food and gas as most of the gas stations are dry. They set the perimeters up, but a storm starts, so they all head inside the bus while Betty goes to LJ's car. Meanwhile, Alice reads the notebook she found in a gas station, where someone has documented a place called Alaska that is isolated and free from infection. Later, Alice has a nightmare of her past fights with zombies and the killings of her companions, which triggers her telekinetic powers, making various rocks fly into the air. She wakes up suddenly, making the rocks and the motorcycle fall to the ground while Isaacs activates another clone of Alice. The Red Queen's sister AI, called the White Queen, reports to Isaacs that she has detected an energy pattern sent out by telekinesis, and Isaacs believes it must be because of the awakening of the new clone, but she explains that it was detected outside the facility. Meanwhile, Claire's convoy wakes up to find that they're surrounded by innumerable crows. She quickly orders everyone to stay inside the truck, roll up the windows, and stay quiet. The girl with Claire, named Kmart, asks Claire why the crows have weird eyes, and Claire explains that it must be because they've been feeding on infected flesh. A young girl in the bus drops an empty can, which makes a crow nearby start making sounds, causing all the others to fly in circles. Claire quickly tells them all to start moving, so they start their cars, but Betty and LJ's vehicle is stuck in the sand. They get out of the car, shooting at the crows while moving towards the bus. They manage to get inside, but the crows surround the bus completely, making it impossible for the driver to see the path, and he crashes into a pole. Claire quickly tells Carlos that they have to evacuate the bus, so Carlos turns his vehicle around and starts shifting people. However, the crows manage to push a few off and feed on them, but most are able to evacuate. The crows break the windshield of the bus and Betty sacrifices herself so the rest can leave. One of the men uses a fire-blowing machine to kill the crows while Carlos steps out to save a girl, but the fire machine accidentally turns towards Carlos and he is about to suffer when Alice shows up. She destroys the crows with her telekinesis as she sets them all on fire, but she falls unconscious. On the other hand, the White Queen again reports massive waves of power, and Isaacs tells her to find Alice's location while he gets ready to head to the surface. Albert Wesker, a high-ranking Umbrella official, and the corporation's security officer, Captain Alexander Slater, stops Isaacs from heading to the surface as it puts his men in danger. But Isaacs shows him that he has created a new breed of zombies that are far quicker and aggressive than the usual undead. Meanwhile, Alice wakes up to find a new bracelet on her wrist, and Kmart reveals that she gave Alice the bracelet as a gift. She explains that she was found in Kmart by Claire. That's why her name is Kmart, and they both head out to the convoy, mourning the loss of their friends. There, Carlos introduces Alice to Claire, saying she is the one who put the convoy together. Carlos asks Alice why she left them after escaping Umbrella's hold, and Alice reveals that she was being tracked, so she decided to leave as she didn't want to put their lives in danger. She tells him that she broke into the facility, hacked into their computers, and stayed away so they don't find her. However, as she says this, a satellite takes her pictures and Isaacs notes her location. He runs a test and gets a 62% probability of this being the original Alice. Later, Claire tells Alice that they are thankful for her help, but most people are scared of her abilities, and Alice understands them. Meanwhile, Dr. Isaacs tells Wesker that he needs Project Alice for his research, but Wesker orders him not to take any action on his own till they're 100% sure. On the other side, Alice tells Claire about Alaska, and one of them named Mikey is impressed by the description and helps Alice to convince Claire. She asks her convoy and they all vote to go, so they head to Alaska. Later they hold a meeting where Carlos explains that they're out of food while Mikey adds that they are almost out of fuel as well. Claire tells them that Vegas will be full of supplies, but Carlos adds that it will also be full of zombies. Meanwhile, Isaacs edits Wesker's words so he can get a security team out to the surface, and they get in helicopters to drop a cabin full of the new breed of zombies in Vegas. The convoy reaches Las Vegas and parks near the pumps that are completely covered with sand. Claire orders one of the members named Chase to climb up the tower to keep watch while the rest are to clear the area. However, Alice hears a sound coming from the cabin and warns the people, but suddenly the cabin opens and many undead rush out of it, attacking them ferociously. They manage to kill many of them, but a few start running after Kmart, who manages to get inside the vehicle. Carlos soon runs out of ammunition, but he picks up another gun and shoots them. The zombies keep on attacking and Isaacs watches this through the camera they've set up. He tells the people with him to move in fast and get Alice's blood sample as soon as she dies. The satellite reaches the perfect position, and Isaacs orders Alice to be shut down. The zombies then break the vehicle and pull Mikey out before feeding on him, despite Claire trying to save them. Claire screams in agony, and this awakens something inside Alice, so the officer tells Isaac that Alice is fighting the conditioning. The zombies start climbing the towers and bite Chase before he falls to his death. At the same time, LJ turns into a zombie and is about to bite Kmart, but Carlos pulls him away. LJ bites Carlos, and Carlos is forced to shoot and kill him. Alice manages to destroy the chip inside the satellite and breaks free from its hold to continue fighting. She finds Isaacs at the scene and he tries to shut her down with more force, but she resists. She comes in and kills all the security guards. However, Isaacs makes it to the helicopter but is bitten by a zombie before he escapes. Kmart arrives and asks Alice why she didn't shoot Isaacs' helicopter, so she tells him that they need that helicopter to track Umbrella's new base. Later, once Isaacs reaches the facility, he injects himself with several antivirus doses, as his own mutated form has become stronger and the infection more aggressive. Wesker had tasked Alexander with watching Isaacs, telling him to kill the scientist if he disobeys orders again. So Alexander shoots Isaacs, but he stands up strong. Isaacs then extends his fingers, killing Alexander and all security officers in the room. Meanwhile, the convoy arrives at the Umbrella surface base and is shocked to see the large number of zombies surrounding the area. Carlos starts to spit out blood and Alice tries to comfort him by saying that she will get the antivirus for him, but he tells her that it's too late now. He says goodbye to all of them, making the girls cry, and sets out to sacrifice himself. Carlos takes a tanker truck with dynamite to destroy the zombie horde blocking the entrance to the Umbrella facility. Just as the dynamite explodes, Alice drives right through the explosion into the facility, where Claire and the survivors board a helicopter to get them to safety. But Alice stays behind. Before entering the underground facility, she comes across the dead bodies of her clones and angrily heads down. Once inside, Alice meets a holograph of the White Queen, who defends the Red Queen's actions to kill everyone in the hive and reveals what happened to Dr. Isaacs. She explains that Dr. Isaacs mutated into the creature after injecting himself with a serum derived from Alice's blood, which triggered massive changes in his body. She reveals that Dr. Isaacs also suspects that Alice's blood can cure the T-virus. Alice questions why she is helping her, and the White Queen notes that Alice's blood is pure and the facility contains all the equipment she needs to produce the cure and end this all. However, the White Queen says that Isaacs might serve as a problem, so she has confined him to the lower levels and Alice heads there to deal with him. She searches the area and comes across one of her clones who hasn't been awakened yet. However, before Alice can do anything, she feels a presence as Dr. Isaacs attacks her. Alice throws a sword at Dr. Isaacs, but he runs out and heals. These commotions wake up Alice's clone, but it dies quickly from the shock of seeing herself up close. Alice covers her and goes to find Dr. Isaacs, but she finds herself back in Raccoon City's mansion where Isaacs attacks her. They get into an intense fight, but Isaacs tells her that she can't kill him before extending his fingers and choking her. However, she cuts his fingers with a blade and uses her telekinetic powers to push him back. He manages to stand up and lets out a scream that sends Alice flying to the Red Queen's laser chamber. Isaacs follows her to tell her that he was wrong about thinking that Alice is their way to evolution, as he is the real future. However, Alice only laughs at him. The laser grid is formed, which cuts Isaacs, and Alice is about to meet the same fate when the laser is suddenly turned off by Alice's clone, who is still alive, and deactivates the system. Later in Tokyo, which is surrounded by zombies, Wesker informs his fellow Umbrella executives that the North American facility has been lost. Alice appears as a hologram during the meeting, declaring that she and her friends, who are the other clones, are coming for him. However, Alice and her clone walk into a lab and are shocked to see numerous Alice clones sleeping in their cryogenic chambers. Resident Evil Afterlife opens one night in a Japanese city where a woman stands still in the middle of the footpath while people pass by her. She suddenly jumps upon a pedestrian, biting his neck before feeding on him and spreading chaos, which slowly engulfs the whole city. Later, Alice confesses that she was once a subject of experiments carried out by the Umbrella Corporation, which eventually led to the apocalypse. While the perpetrators survived by hiding in high-tech fortresses, outside one such fortress in Tokyo, a couple of guards are ambushed while they are busy eliminating zombies from the rooftops. Down below, the control room operators inform Chairman Wesker that all of the perimeter security officers have been taken out, and while he communicates with a security guard at the surface gate, he sees one getting stabbed from behind while the elevator starts to move down towards them. He thus orders his men to block its entrance. However, they are taken by surprise when Alice gets behind them through an air vent and proceeds to cut them down. More troops arrive and are about to shoot her when she suddenly blows them all away with a forceful wave produced by her telekinetic powers, leaving the whole compound in ruin. She is about to do the same to another detachment of soldiers, but a survivor shoots her dead from behind. However, the elevator door opens again, revealing 3 more Alice clones who resume the massacre. As a result, Wesker orders his men to flood the floor with nerve gas, but the operator protests this decision, saying that it is fatal to his men present on the same floor, so Wesker kills him. Meanwhile, Alice clones wreak havoc on the floor, and then 2 of them jump through the windows, shooting many guards. One of them is shot dead midair by Wesker, while the surviving one is taken out after she lands. However, the third continues to fight below him. Wesker turns over one of the dead clones, but to his surprise finds her with 2 unpinned grenades which catch him in the blast and breach the fortress's security system. Moments later, Wesker walks to the helipad with only mild injuries from the blast and gets into the helicopter to escape the base. While he is taking off, several Alice clones shoot at him, but they fail to hit the target, and he sets off demolition charges in the whole base. It leads to an enormous explosion that engulfs the buildings surrounding the fortress, but Wesker escapes in his aircraft with only mild turbulence. On his flight, the original Alice, who managed to get on the aircraft, takes him at gunpoint, but he outsmarts her and injects her with a serum that takes away the power she gained from the T-cells in her body. Thus, she becomes vulnerable and gets beaten by him. But before he can kill her, the aircraft crashes, landing on the surface. However, out of the burning rubble, Alice walks out with non-lethal injuries. After taking revenge on the Umbrella Corporation, Alice sets off for Arcadia, a town in Alaska that claims to be infection-free and is offering shelter to any refugees. Alice travels to Alaska in a small plane, hoping to unite with Claire Redfield in Arcadia. But after landing in an airfield full of small aircrafts, she finds nothing but her journal, which she had handed over to Kmart before they departed from the Nevada desert. Disappointed by Arcadia's false promise, Alice records her thoughts in her camcorder when she suddenly sees someone running towards the plains. She chases the person to the field and while searching gets ambushed from behind but is able to knock the attacker out easily. To Alice's surprise, it is Claire Redfield with a robotic bug attached to her chest. Later, when Claire regains consciousness, she remembers nothing about her past, or about the robotic bug, and as Alice tries to help her recall the past, she is observed from above through a satellite. The next day, Alice sets off for the American West Coast, and on the way, she reminds Claire of her name and their shared past, but refuses to untie her until they develop a level of trust. They arrive at Los Angeles, which is completely burned down and ruined. However, they spot some survivors who signal to them from the top of a building. Alice decides to land the plane on the roof, which almost falls off the building before the survivors direct it upwards. Upon getting off the plane, Alice disappoints the survivors by revealing that she is not on a rescue mission from Arcadia to save them. Two of the survivors, Luther West and Angel Ortiz, explained to Alice that they had been getting transmissions from Arcadia for a few days, due to which they expected her to be from there. Alice reveals that their efforts are in vain as no Arcadia exists, but she is surprised when they tell her that Arcadia is a ship, not a town, that has been going down the coast and picking up survivors. They show her the ship through binoculars, but also tell her that the transmissions from the ship stopped abruptly 2 days ago. Alice then reports this to Claire, who claims to remember people coming to rescue them from Arcadia in boats when she was in Alaska, but she can't recall the reason for her not going. All this is recorded by the satellite observing them both from above. Later, as Luther lights the fires around the perimeter, a zombie digs through the ground towards the building but goes unnoticed. He then shows her Block B, the part of the building where they live. And she also meets Crystal, who cooks for the party. Aside from Crystal, she is introduced to Bennett, a rude man who was a producer, and Kim Young, his intern, who still obeys him without any reason. While they eat, Crystal wonders if Alice can fly the survivors to Arcadia, but she is reminded that the plane only carries 2 people, and it cannot land properly on the roof every time. She then tries to suggest different ways of escaping the building, which Luther dismisses and calls a waste of time, but upon Alice's insistence, he agrees to show her how it can be done. Moments later, they descend to the lower levels of the building, which Luther reveals was a maximum security prison, where they find a man named Wendell keeping watch of the area. Wendell claims to have heard some movement in the walls, which Luther volunteers to check with him, while Alice is left to talk with a man named Chris, who is a prisoner in a cell. But we all know there isn't a frickin' prison in the world that can hold this man. Chris claims that he was part of a military unit that used the building as a staging post, and on one of their stays in the building he woke up to find himself locked in a cell, and his unit gone. He believes that his unit pranked him by leaving him in the cage, and now the survivors consider him to be a former prisoner and refuse to let him out. He offers Alice his help in return for letting him out, but she does not listen to his story and asks Luther about him. Luther tells her that he can see in Chris's eyes that he is a killer, so they will not let him out. Moments later, Alice shows Luther her arsenal of weapons while Claire and Angel observe Arcadia from the rooftop but fail to see anyone on deck. The next day, a monstrously tall man walks through the city dragging a poleaxe behind him, and inside the building, the zombie manages to dig through to the surface unnoticed. Elsewhere, Luther shows Alice the shower room, which still has running water for use, and leaves her to wash herself, but she hears a noise and upon inspection finds Wendell to be hiding there for a sneak peek. However, before she can do anything about it, a zombie attacks them and drags Wendell through a tunnel in the floor, which they use to get in. All of the survivors gather to investigate the tunnel and discuss their plan for getting out of the building and reaching Arcadia. When they are not able to come up with a plan, they decide to release Chris and take his help despite Bennett's protests. Upon getting out, Chris recognizes Claire as his sister, but she has no recollection of their relation, which Alice attributes to her drug-induced amnesia. Next, Chris guides the group to a garage in the courtyard where he claims that he houses an urban pacification vehicle, capable of housing 20 people and tearing through the zombie horde with its strong metallic body. However, the door lock is jammed, which Angel and Bennett decide to cut through with a plasma cutter, while Claire and Luther try to barricade the front gate, which is being destroyed by the tall axeman with his poleaxe. Elsewhere, Chris guides Alice and Crystal to the armory, which they find to be blocked off by flooded levels. They swim through the murky waters to the other side where they are ambushed by the zombie horde from the water. The zombies drag Crystal into the water, while Chris and Alice escape into the armory, which they find full of modern weaponry. Meanwhile, the jammed door of a garage is opened and the UPV is found inside, but its engine is found separate from its body, which Angel claims would take weeks to put inside the car. Bennett cannot accept this and shoots Angel dead in front of Kim Young, and outside, the Axeman brings the gate down, letting the zombie horde inside. Back in the armory, Alice and Chris decide to get out through the air vents as their original path is blocked off by the undead. Thus, they climb up and hear the noise of a plane engine, which turns out to be Bennett trying to escape with Kim Young. However, Kim does not get on the plane due to his moral values, and Bennett takes off on his own while the other survivors watch in vain. At the same time, the zombie hordes flood the roof and the survivors are forced to fight them with their guns as they get into the elevator to descend to the shower room. On the other hand, Alice holds off the swarm and blows them up with grenades as she herself gets down to the courtyard by swinging off a steel rope. she is able to get inside the shower room, where they decide to get out through the tunnel dug up by the zombies from the sewers to access the ocean through it. Chris and Luther take the lead, and Kim is supposed to follow but is sliced up by the Axeman's poleaxe. Alice shoots him, but he remains unfazed and kicks her into the wall, knocking her out. Before he can decapitate her, Claire picks up her guns and lures the Axeman away from Alice, making him follow her while smashing through the shower pipes. Claire then backflips off the wall to create distance between her and the Axeman, through which they both charge at each other, with Claire picking up her dropped shotgun and shooting the Axeman in the stomach on her slide through his legs. The Axeman falls but soon gets on his knees and throws the hammer at Claire, whom it narrowly misses as Alice arrives to make her duck below it. The hammer smashes into the wall, and Alice blows off the Axeman's head with her shotgun before getting into the tunnel. The girls slowly make their way through the tunnel and eventually reunite with Luther and Chris, who guide them to the sewers. They get out into the sewers, but Luther is grabbed by a zombie before he can get out, and the tunnel caves in on them, leaving no chance for his survival. The trio of Claire, Alice, and Chris uses the sewers to reach the ocean, which they cover in a boat to reach Arcadia, but they find it abandoned with Bennett's crashed plane and no signs of the crew. They check the logs of the ship and discover that the crew left 2 days ago, just when the transmission stopped. Meanwhile, their records show that there are still 2,000 survivors on board. The trio decides to search the ship for survivors, and as they look for them under the deck, they discover the logo of the Umbrella Corporation inside, revealing that the ship was a false hope fabricated to lure people in to be later used as test subjects. Claire then suddenly remembers that the people from Arcadia who came for their rescue in Alaska were the goons of the Umbrella Corporation. They captured the survivors, while Claire managed to escape with the robotic bug attached to her chest, which slowly made her lose her memory. Inside the chambers of the ship, they find Kmart and the bodies of other captured survivors kept to be tested on. While Claire is busy saving Kmart, Alice discovers bloodstains and follows them to another section full of aircrafts, with Chris following her from behind. Alice finally reaches a room where Wesker sits on a throne with bodies of test subjects around him. He claims to have been brought back by the T-virus, but he faced the problem of controlling his body as the virus tried to take over. So to maintain control, he tried ingesting human DNA, making his crew run away. However, he now has a new plan, and Bennett has become his follower, who takes Alice at gunpoint. Wesker plans on taking Alice's DNA, as she was the only one who successfully bonded with the T-virus. But before he can do anything to her, she starts to resist as she is ambushed by his zombie dogs. On the other hand, Claire and Chris take on Wesker, whose super speed and healing make him almost impossible to hit. He easily overpowers them and locks them away in testing chambers, whereas Alice kills the dogs and subdues Bennett. She then uses the opportunity to shoot Wesker in the head as he spits hideous tendrils out of his mouth. Alice then releases Chris and Claire, and they both empty their guns into Wesker's half-dead body, finally killing him. After that, they release all the survivors, while leaving Bennett locked in the chamber to be eaten alive by Wesker. Moments later, an aircraft takes off, driven by a recovered Wesker who tries to blow up the ship with explosives, but Alice secretly hid the explosives on his aircraft instead, blowing it to pieces. Alice then proceeds to continue the Arcadia broadcast for any remaining survivors, and Luther also manages to reach the coast unharmed. However, they all witness a storm of Umbrella aircrafts heading straight to Arcadia. Resident Evil Retribution starts where we left off. The looming aircrafts launch an attack on the Arcadia, with numerous soldiers led by Jill Valentine landing onto the ship and killing most of the survivors. While capturing the injured, Alice fights back and opens fire at an aircraft that crashes near her on deck, sending an unconscious Alice into the water. When she wakes up, she finds herself in the bedroom of a house where her husband asks her to hurry up and get ready to drop off their daughter Becky to school as they are already late. She feels odd but plays along and goes to the kitchen to prepare breakfast for Becky, who uses sign language to communicate because she is deaf, while her husband named Carlos Oliveira tells Becky how she also has to speak when using sign language. Alice is playfully teasing Carlos when suddenly a zombie ambushes and bites the husband on his forearm, while Alice and Becky hide in the pantry from the zombies. Alice tries to force open the pantry window, but it does not budge and is too small for them to pass through, so she uses a wiper to puncture a hole in the ceiling, through which she and Becky move up to the attic, narrowly evading the undead. Moments later, Alice and Becky come down to the first floor and try to sneak through the corridor, but are chased by a zombie into the bedroom, where she locks the door and lets Becky out through the window, while smashing the incoming zombie's head with a baseball bat. Alice follows Becky outside, to realize that chaos has surrounded the neighborhood, as zombies attack people while policemen shoot them down and commoners try to escape. Alice and Becky are almost hit by an incoming vehicle which is driven by Rain Ocampo, who urges them to get in. They then drive away from the swarm of zombies, but they are unable to get away for long, as a truck hits them from behind and turns their vehicle upside down. Alice and Becky suffer minor injuries while Rain is unconscious, so they are forced to abandon her to escape the incoming zombies. They enter a house where they hide in a bedroom closet while various zombies barge into the house, and one zombie enters the bedroom looking for them. Just as he is about to discover their location, Alice comforts Becky and pushes him away before luring him to the nearby staircase, from where he falls during their struggle. However, Alice next comes across her reanimated husband who jumps upon her and she lets out a scream. Moments later, she wakes up from her dream in a chamber of an Umbrella Corporation facility, where Jill Valentine, who is controlled by a robotic spider attached to her chest, questions Alice about why she turned against Umbrella. Alice does not answer her questions, but instead asks Valentine about Chris and Claire. However, she is met only with a shrieking noise from the sound system, which is used to torture her. Sometime later, as she lies dazed against a wall, the computer system suddenly shuts off for 2 minutes and she is offered a combat suit and a way out of her chamber. She avails the opportunity and escapes into the corridor where she has to evade a laser grid sweeping across it. She outruns it into a separate chamber, which turns out to be an empty Tokyo City, with all of its infrastructure intact. Alice breaks into a nearby police vehicle and acquires a gun from the inside when suddenly people start to flood the streets, and a girl walks past her before turning around to pounce on a man nearby, biting his neck to start the zombie outbreak in Tokyo. Chaos spreads all around, and Alice runs into an adjacent corridor that opens up for her, where she has to fight a swarm of zombies who are attacking her. She manages to kill a few, but even more follow her inside. So she escapes through a nearby door that opens up for a split second and closes just before the horde can follow her inside. Once inside, Alice sees different workstations of the Umbrella's central control with the operators killed in their seats, and a weapon rack emerges from the floor from which she picks up a knife. Suddenly, a woman takes her at gunpoint from behind, and a fight ensues between the two. Alice has the upper hand, and while she holds a knife at her, she acknowledges the identity of the woman as Ada Wong, one of Albert Wesker's top agents. However, Ada claims to be no longer working for the Umbrella Corporation, but instead working against them in league with Wesker. Just then, Wesker appears on a nearby screen and explains that he needs Alice's help to ensure mankind's survival, and for that reason he got Ada to infiltrate the Umbrella facility to break Alice out. Alice does not believe them, so Wesker explains to her that the Tokyo she saw outside was just a simulation called a test environment, used by Umbrella to provide a spectacle for their clients who come to buy bioweapons from them. He claims that the facility is a repurposed USSR submarine base, which is notorious for being impossible to escape since it is miles down a frozen lake. However, Wesker has hired a strike team that has Luther West and is tasked with breaking Ada and Alice out of the facility within 2 hours before the arrival of reinforcements. The team secures an elevator and sets detonation charges along its route as they come down. Back in the facility, Wesker informs Alice that Valentine is coming for her with her squad and charts an escape route for her. But just then, the Red Queen, still being the leader of the remains of Umbrella, intercepts his signals. She deems Wesker a traitor and orders Alice to surrender, but they defy her and run into the New York test environment. Elsewhere, the strike team arrives at the facility and blasts away the troops blocking the entrance of the elevator before reaching the submarine base. Meanwhile, the Red Queen activates the New York test environment biohazard, where 2 poleaxe-wielding giant men pin down Alice and Ada. The Axemen remain unaffected by heavy fire, and one of them corners Ada in a bus which he is destroying more and more. On the other hand, Alice lures both the Axemen and sets them right in the path of gasoline flowing from a fuel truck. The duo then unites and lights the gasoline on fire, effectively killing the Axemen, and ending the New York test sequence. As they escape the area, the Red Queen activates the Las Plagas, a parasitic organism that takes over a host's body, causing them to become stronger and highly resistant to pain. On the other hand, the strike team arrives at the Moscow test environment and are given a tough time by the reanimated USSR soldiers, who pin them down with heavy gunfire. Elsewhere, Alice and Ada arrive at the suburbia test environment, the place where Alice had once been placed in a fake life as a married woman with a family, and they're supposed to meet the strike team there, but no one is around. The duo enters a house where the dead body of Alice's clone is lying, and then they find Becky in the bedroom after killing a zombie. Back in Moscow, the strike squad is being pushed to their limits by the reanimated soldiers who use heavy artillery and explosives to subdue them. Meanwhile, back in the house, Ada explains to Alice that Becky is just a random clone, whose memories have been imprinted by Umbrella for her to react as expected. But Alice still can't shake the motherly feelings for her. Moments later, when they go outside, they're met with a squad led by Rain, Carlos, James One Shade, and Jill Valentine. The squad orders Alice's unconditional surrender and promises death in case of non-compliance. However, Alice refuses to back down, and a brutal gunfight ensues that leads to the house being demolished. Ada urges Alice to leave with her tech glasses and Becky while she holds the squad down, but just as Alice leaves, Valentine sends a huge explosive inside, forcing Ada to escape through the wooden floor. Elsewhere, the soldiers who have turned into zombies reach the strike team and take out one of them, while the team lead, named Leon S. Kennedy, is narrowly saved by Luther. Moments later, Alice and Becky enter the subway platform of Moscow and meet a non-aggressive civilian Rain who is tasked by Alice to safeguard Becky, while she goes up to help the strike team. On the surface, the team marginally escapes the building they were held in, but are pounced upon by a ferocious Uber licker, which engulfs one of their mates. The rest are saved by the incoming sedan driven by Alice, who runs it into the licker and seats the remaining team members in the car as they try to escape the swarm of the undead. The two parties exchange heavy fire as they drive through the streets of Moscow. And finally Alice reaches the other end of the subway and launches her car inside, followed closely by the Uber licker, who gets crushed under the rubble brought down when the car smashes through the entrance. They then reunite with Becky and Rain, while Alice uses the high-tech glasses handed over to her by Ada to view the blueprint of the facility and find a way to the elevator. On the way, Alice discovers that Leon and his team are risking their lives for her because Wesker claims that she has the knowledge of a weapon that can turn the tide in favor of human beings. Later, when they reach the elevator, the Red Queen cuts off its power, jamming it and leaving them vulnerable to the attacks of the Uber licker, which has survived the rubble. It injures Barry Burton with its claws and smashes Rain into the wall, breaking her neck, while also snatching away Becky to lure Alice. When Alice decides to follow it, Leon tries to stop her, but to no avail, while Luther volunteers to accompany her. However, just as they are about to leave, the Umbrella soldiers arrive and open fire at them, hitting Luther in the arm while Barry tries to hold them off in his injured state. Meanwhile, Alice climbs up to follow the licker into a dark corridor where the Uber licker's nest is, and she sees Becky trapped inside a vesicle. She swiftly headshots the licker and frees Becky while acquiring grenades from the body of a nearby victim. Down below, Barry is forced to surrender when the Umbrella soldiers threaten to kill Ada, who they have captured. And as he comes forward, he is shot by the soldiers, but he uses his last bullet to take out one. Elsewhere, Becky and Alice enter a huge chamber, where they see thousands of their clones being prepared for testing. And just then, the licker returns to attack them. However, Alice blows it up with the grenades while using a grappling gun to escape the impact. On the other hand, Leon and Luther see the countdown reach 0, causing the charges to explode, flooding the whole facility. While they escape upwards in the elevator. Once there, Alice and Becky reunite with them through a shaft nearby, and the party sets off across the lake in their military vehicle. Leon assures them that rescue choppers will arrive in a short period, thus they can finally relax. But the vehicle experiences turbulence and is overturned by a submarine surfacing near them. The party abandons the vehicle, and witness Ada held prisoner by Rain and Valentine as they come out of the submarine. Rain then injects herself with the Las Plagas parasite and knocks Ada out with a blow to the head. They open fire at her, while Valentine dodges the bullets to take on Alice with a spear. Meanwhile, Rain shrugs off and discards the bullets through her fingertips and takes on Luther and Leon alone. During their fight, Valentine dominates Alice and lifts her from her neck in an attempt to crush her against the spinning wheels of the vehicle. But Alice manages to reach the robotic spider on her chest and dislodge it to end Umbrella's control over Valentine. Alice then shoots the spider dead, while Rain brings down Luther with a strong blow to his chest, effectively stopping his heart and killing him. Moments later, Rain throws Leon unconscious against the submarine and turns her attention to Alice, shrugging off her gunfire and landing a strong blow to the chest trying to kill her. However, an unpossessed Valentine throws a machine gun at Alice just in time, which she uses to shoot the ice sheet under Rain, sending her into the frozen lake where a swarm of zombies gets a hold of her and tries to drown her. She manages to break free from them for a moment and rises to the surface, only to be pulled back in again by the horde. When the fight is over, Leon embraces Ada and they hear the noise of the incoming rescue chopper while Alice loses consciousness. Later, she wakes up with Becky and Valentine by her side as they fly to Washington, D.C., the last station of humanity. Inside the White House, she finds the last few remaining soldiers and officers holding the front against the incoming waves of zombies, and in the president's room, Wesker welcomes her as he presides over the president's chair. He then immediately uses his super speed to inject Alice with the T-virus, claiming that she is the only one who has bonded perfectly with the virus, harvesting its real potential. Alice is furious with him for stealing her humanity and vows to take revenge on him. However, she does not do anything about it since she knows that there are more urgent things to take care of. Wesker takes her outside to the roof of the White House, from where she can see a huge wall around it, holding back the undead of all sorts. He then explains how the Red Queen is trying to wipe out humanity with her zombie horde, and that Alice must help them out as she is their only hope of surviving the apocalypse. Resident Evil: The final chapter begins with Alice narrating the Umbrella Corporation's history, where she reveals that the T-virus was initially created by the co-founder of Umbrella, named Dr. James Marcus, to save his daughter Alicia from progeria, a disease that caused her premature aging and the wasting away of her body. The T-virus was later used to cure numerous diseases, but it had a fatal side effect. It led to some of its subjects turning into zombies, which first occurred with a kid turning into a zombie and wiping out a chairlift full of tourists. Due to this side effect, Dr. Marcus wanted to shut down the program, but his business partner, Dr. Alexander Isaacs, assassinated him and hushed up the incident while continuing to develop the T-virus to be used as a bioweapon. He also became the guardian of Alicia and her inheritance, and created an AI, the Red Queen, as a copy of Alicia to safeguard the interests of the Umbrella Corporation. Later, an accident in the hive, located under Raccoon City, led to the outbreak of the T-virus engulfing the world in an apocalypse. 10 years after the outbreak, Alice emerges from a well in a decimated Washington, D.C., the last bastion of civilization. Just as she bends down to drink water from a pool, a zombie ambushes her from within the water, but she manages to escape as the zombie's foot is stuck in a chain, making it unable to follow her. Alice then enters a building to look for supplies, but a giant mutated bat named the Dragon Bat attacks her, destroying the building and following her around as she tries to escape in a military vehicle. She eventually turns around and charges her car at the bat, pinning it down against another vehicle and blowing it up with a claymore. Moments later, Alice enters an abandoned underground chamber, where the Red Queen contacts her through the screens and informs her that the remaining human survivors are going to be eliminated within 48 hours. And even though she herself cannot go against Umbrella, Alice can destroy the T-virus by acquiring an airborne antidote located in the hive. Alice refuses to believe her, but Red Queen says she can also avenge Wesker, who has just landed at the hive. On her way to Raccoon City, spike strips lying across the road makes Alice's car crash, forcing her to walk on foot. And just ahead, she finds an Umbrella Corporation bike parked under a bridge. When she tries to get on it, her foot gets caught in a booby trap that suspends her upside down. And Umbrella soldiers emerge from hiding, proceeding to hit her with their guns, but she manages to snatch a gun from a soldier's suit, which she uses to take out the ambushing soldiers. However, when she finally gets on the bike, it electrocutes her until she passes out because of unauthorized access. Later, she wakes up in a convoy that is transporting captured survivors, and Dr. Isaacs descends from the upper deck, revealing that Alice had only managed to kill his clone. Dr. Isaacs shows her the decapitated heads of Valentine and Ada, and claims that Alice is soon going to end up like them, as she has been a problem for him, and has resulted in delaying the cleansing of the human race by a year. He then gets Alice tied to the rear of the convoy so that she is forced to run along with it and evade a swarm of zombies following it, until she reveals the reason for her journey to Raccoon City. He then contacts Wesker at the hive, ordering him to maximize the security as Alice might attempt to infiltrate the facility to steal the antivirus. Back on the road, Alice hides below the convoy when the guard is distracted and drags him down to the horde of zombies behind them. Another soldier comes up to investigate the commotion and meets the same fate, prompting Dr. Isaacs to come up himself to deal with Alice. As they fight, Alice outsmarts him, forcing him to open her handcuffs, and moments later she kicks a trigger that opens up the Umbrella Corporation bike for use. Dr. Isaacs warns her that she will not be able to use it, but Alice cunningly chops off his hand, which she uses to bypass its security system and drive away. As she speeds ahead of the convoy, an Umbrella soldier targets her with the vehicle's heavy artillery and explosives, but Alice is able to survive it through her driving and escapes the convoy. Meanwhile at the hive, the Red Queen informs Wesker about Alice closing in on them, so he orders her to shut down all entries to the facility, in addition to alerting their operative in Raccoon City. Later, when Alice arrives at Raccoon City, she is knocked unconscious from the bike by a trap. Upon waking up, she sees a man trying to inject her with something, so she takes him hostage while being surrounded by his fellows who all aim their guns at her. When one of them turns out to be Claire Redfield, Alice calms down and realizes that they were only trying to wake her up with an adrenaline injection. Moments later, she urges them to evacuate their base as it lies in the path of Dr. Isaacs' armored vehicles and the horde of zombies. One person from the group named Christian disapproves of Alice and urges the others to turn her out, but Claire and her friend named Doc speak in Alice's favor, and later Claire reveals that she caused the crash of an umbrella chopper which was transporting her to the hive, and Doc helped her out of the crash site. After a while, when Alice's injuries are being treated, she reveals her plan to acquire the Umbrella-developed airborne antivirus stored away at the Hive within 48 hours. Claire is opposed to the idea, as the antivirus would destroy anything infected with the T-virus, including Alice. But Alice convinces her that it can save humanity. They start preparing for a battle with Dr. Isaac's army. And during this, Alice informs Claire that someone saw her driving towards the trap but did not signal her to stop, implying that there might be a traitor among them, which is confirmed by Wesker, who relays information about Alice and their plans for a battle from his informant to Dr. Isaac's. When Dr. Isaac's army arrives near the settlement, they shut the gates and use a catapult to fire gasoline-filled tanks at the convoy, hitting one of the armored vehicles and causing it to crash. Next, Isaacs uses a prisoner woman as bait to lure the zombies towards the settlement, prompting Alice to open the gate for her.
Marker 2!
However, Isaac shoots her down just when she is about to reach the gate. Some zombies are able to cross the gate and are shot down by Claire and Doc, but an incoming missile takes out the gate and knocks them down. Alice directs the men to push down rubble from the roof to block the entrance, while Claire and Doc retreat to the barricades. Isaacs then fires at the roof while the zombies accumulate in huge numbers in the center of the building, battering themselves against the barricades and breaking them open to kill one of the survivors. Just then, Alice orders her company to pour oil down the building in huge amounts, which is set on fire, causing a huge fire that burns away the zombies within the building, and makes Dr. Isaac's convoy retreat. Meanwhile, Alice uses a zipline to reach the surface and then evades the gunfire to reach the vehicle, pouring in gasoline through the vents and igniting it with a flare to create an explosion. A surviving soldier emerges from the vehicle and puts up a good fight, knocking Alice around until she gets her hands on her shotgun and shoots him, but his reinforced suit prevents a deadly injury. Alice then scans the vehicle for Dr. Isaacs but is told by the prisoners in the adjacent chamber that he escaped using the back door. The surviving Umbrella soldier is then made to walk behind the vehicle like Alice, as a couple of the survivors drive it away from the base, luring away the undead. However, the company witnesses two other big waves of zombies moving towards them. So Alice decides to lead the company into the Hive, while two prisoners from Dr. Isaac's convoy also join them. Meanwhile, Dr. Isaacs secretly observes them as they descend into the crater formed by the bomb dropped on the Hive by the government. Later, when the company reaches near the opening of the Hive in the middle of the crater, Wesker takes the defense command into his own hands and unleashes the mutated dogs called Cerberus at the company. The Cerberus surround and pounce upon them as it fights its way to the water body surrounding the opening to the Hive. One of the prisoners from the convoy is killed, while the others jump into the water to escape the onslaught, only to be ambushed again near the entrance. This time, Christian is killed while the survivors enter the tunnel, and the Cerberus back away on their own. Down below, Wesker orders the gate to be shut, so the company hurries inside when Alice is suddenly attacked by a zombie who almost gets her crushed along with him between the gates, but Alice manages to survive. Once inside, Alice is greeted by the Red Queen, who shows her a video clip of Dr. Isaacs presiding over a meeting of the Umbrella Corporation higher-ups, where he is trying to convince them that humanity faces extinction in a few years. Thus, they should use the T-virus to start their own apocalypse, cleansing the world of the unwanted people and rebuilding it according to their own designs. The Red Queen reveals that she was programmed to value human life, so she is helping out the survivors through this information. Otherwise, she cannot defy the Umbrella Corporation due to her programming. She also gives Alice an earpiece through which she informs her that there is a traitor among them, acting as an informant for Wesker, and urges her to hurry and save humanity. Back up on the surface, Dr. Isaacs gets on an Umbrella armored vehicle bound for the city and forces its direction toward the Hive. Meanwhile, Alice and the company try to cross a ventilation fan which suddenly turns on and almost kills a girl, who is saved by Alice jumping back in to rescue her. Just when they are across, Wesker reverses the fan's direction, thus sucking the air inwards and making the survivors hold on for their lives, while the girl eventually gets chopped to death but stops the fan in the process, making a path for her friends. Elsewhere, Dr. Isaacs gets closer to the Hive, having killed all the soldiers in the vehicle, while Alice and the squad crawl through the ventilation shafts when a hatch suddenly opens, making one of the survivors fall to his death. Again, two hatches open, making Alice and Claire fall through them, with Alice ending up in a dark abandoned mortuary with bodies hanging off chains everywhere. Razor falls inside to join her but is quickly killed by a rampaging biohazard that bites off his head. Alice opens fire, putting it down only for it to get up again and chase her around. Having no other option, she pierces it with a metal chain and makes it follow her until the chain runs out, allowing her to land the killing blow while it is stuck. Soon, Doc joins her in the room, and they hurry their way to the depths of the hive, which is observed by Wesker, who orders the Red Queen to wake the assets reserved for the greatest emergencies. Meanwhile, Dr. Isaacs crashes his armored vehicle by recklessly driving it into the crater, with the zombie horde banging against its walls. Elsewhere, Claire wakes up in a clear cage in a room full of other such cages, whereas Alice and Doc arrive at a corridor, which Alice recalls to be the same one where the Umbrella Corporation team got sliced up by sweeping laser grids put in motion by the Red Queen. They hurry across it to the control room and use the controls to make the platform descend to the lowest level of the hive. On their way down, they see multiple tiers with rows and rows full of cryogenic chambers, which Alice claims to contain the bodies of the Umbrella Corporation's higher-ups waiting out the apocalypse. Alice then pulls up some explosives from the squad's gear and asks Doc to help her out with them. Meanwhile, on the lowest level, Wesker wakes the original Dr. Isaacs from sleep, informing him that they face a dire problem, which Dr. Isaacs attributes to a traitor. While looking at the Red Queen, elsewhere on the surface, the Dr. Isaacs clone trapped inside the armored vehicle lures the swarm of zombies towards the hive by acting as bait. On the other hand, Claire escapes her cage by blowing it open with an improvised bomb, but Wesker closely follows her. Moments later, Alice and Doc arrive and face the original Dr. Isaacs at the lowest level, who orders her to surrender or else he will destroy the single vessel of the antivirus. And suddenly Doc reveals himself to be the informant. Simultaneously, Claire is brought in by Wesker, who is holding her at gunpoint. While Alice thinks of different ways of killing Dr. Isaacs, he tells her not to bother, as a clone like her cannot beat his T-virus-enhanced body. He reveals that she is only a clone made in a lab in the likeness of Alicia Marcus, who at that moment enters the room in a wheelchair. Alice refuses to believe it, but the Red Queen confirms Dr. Isaacs' claim. Dr. Isaacs mocks Alicia for uploading the video of his meeting to the Red Queen and turning her into a traitor. As he feels that both of them have failed and will soon be removed from their posts when the rest of the Umbrella higher-ups wake up from their sleep. However, Alicia shocks them by using her power to fire Wesker, thus enabling the Red Queen to crush him under a descending door. Doc tries to shoot Alice, but his gun turns out to have been secretly emptied beforehand by Alice, who takes him down, and Claire shoots him dead. Alice then puts the trigger of the bombs placed around the cryogenic chambers of the Umbrella executives in Wesker's hands and leaves to pursue Isaacs. Alicia uses her final moments to record her childhood memories in the Red Queen's database. Meanwhile, Alice and Claire corner Dr. Isaacs on the controls platform, but he has already disabled the Red Queen and now dominates both on their way to the upper level. Once there, he throws Alice into the corridor and attacks her with the corridor-sweeping laser, which she successfully avoids until he beats her up further and gets her fingers cut off by it, as he forcefully holds her hand in place for it. Just when Alice appears to have been defeated, she throws the pin of a grenade that she had put in Isaac's suit during their fight, which explodes and finally kills him. Alice then quickly takes the antivirus from him and rushes to the surface. Meanwhile, Wesker passes away, dropping the trigger that destroys the whole facility, including Alicia and the Umbrella higher-ups. However, when Alice tries to release the antivirus on the surface, Isaacs reawakens from the dead, arriving to snatch it back, and is only stopped by the Isaacs clone reaching the location and murdering the original because he cannot accept being a clone. He is then killed by the swarm lured in by him, while Alice releases the antivirus, putting down all zombies and nearly killing herself. However, she later wakes up to see Claire alive, and a remaining hologram projector triggers the Red Queen, who reveals that she stopped the attacks on the remaining human settlements when Isaacs died, and that Alice survived because only the infected cells inside her body were killed while the healthy cells survived. The warning that she would be killed by the antivirus was only to test her courage, and as a final gift she is given the lens through which Alicia downloaded her life memories, enabling Alice to have the memories of a full, lived-in life. Alice then rides off into the sunset on her motorcycle, followed by dragon bats, knowing that the antivirus might take years to spread across the world, so she still has work to do. Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City is a reboot that opens in the Raccoon City orphanage where a young Claire Redfield goes to her brother's bed as she is scared to sleep alone. Later, she is woken up by some sound and sees a girl in a mask standing near the doorway of the dorm staring at her. But the girl disappears into the darkness before her brother named Chris wakes up to see her. He thinks that she is imagining things and tells her to go back to sleep, or else they might get into trouble with Dr. Birkin for sharing the bed again. After Chris goes back to sleep, Claire gets out of bed and roams the corridors to look for the girl while the on-duty nurse is busy watching a TV show at her station. Claire enters a classroom and finds the woman inside a playhouse, and upon asking about her identity, she shows Claire her handcuffed and deformed arms showing a tag with her name, Lisa Trevor. She also reveals that she lives below when asked about her house and disappears before the arrival of the orphanage doctor, who is about to scold Claire for leaving her bed so late at night. However, Chris arrives and says that she might have reached here by sleepwalking, which she developed when their parents died. The doctor praises Chris for being caring and sees them off to their beds, but when he leaves, the deformed girl returns, which makes Claire scream. Later on a night in September 1998, now an adult, Claire wakes up from a nightmare as she hitchhikes with a truck driver and his dog to Raccoon City in order to see her brother Chris. The driver gets too comfortable with her, advising her to leave Raccoon City with her brother since it has become a dead town after the Umbrella Corporation abandoned it. He then gets distracted from the road while trying to touch her, and it leads his truck to run over a woman crossing the road. They quickly get out and argue about what should be done to the body, when the woman suddenly reawakens and walks away, with only the dog witnessing it, who then licks up the pool of blood before they resume their journey. Meanwhile at Raccoon City, a rookie cop named Leon S. Kennedy gets bullied by his senior officers because he dozed off in a diner. One of them, named Albert Wesker, puts a bottle on his head and dares another officer named Jill Valentine to knock it off with a toy gun, but she ends up throwing the gun at Leon's head to wake him up. Just then, a couple of other senior officers named Morini and Dooley enter the diner, and one of them joins the bullies to bother Leon about his past and brings up the time he accidentally shot his partner but then got bailed out by his rich father. The officer also mentions that a dead body was found in the Spencer mansion, and wishes Raccoon City would be shut down soon, as it already is a ghost town. The senior officers then leave, with Valentine introducing herself to Leon and apologizing for her earlier behavior. Moments later, Leon points out that the waitress is bleeding from her eye, but she disregards it as trivial. And just then something hits the window, leaving a blood splatter on it. When they check on it, they find a crow bleeding to death. On the other hand, Claire arrives at Raccoon City and gets off the truck, but as she walks away, the truck driver sees his dog foaming at his mouth. The driver hugs him, but the dog bites his hand, making it bleed. On the other side, Claire arrives at Chris's house but does not get a response from the back or the front door, while a young boy and his mother stare at her from the neighboring house, before she uses a knife to break into her brother's place. Inside, she examines Chris's photos with his colleagues and comes across a picture of him with the orphanage Dr. William Birkin just as Chris comes downstairs. However, he is not thrilled to see her after all these years, as he blames her for abandoning him and running away. He asks the reason for her return and rejects her suspicions of the Umbrella Corporation poisoning Raccoon City, as he holds it in high regard because it provided him support and a job when he was all alone. Claire tries to tell him about the woman who walked away after being run over by the truck and shows him the video of a guy named Ben Bertolucci, whom she met in a chat room, and claims that there has been a leak about Umbrella's secret activities in Raccoon City, but Chris does not believe her. Meanwhile, Dr. William Birkin and his wife are comforting their daughter, who has just had a nightmare, when he gets a call from the Umbrella headquarters, prompting him to order his wife and daughter to get ready to leave as soon as possible. In the city, the sirens blare, and the Umbrella Corporation warns the townspeople to stay home for their safety as lights go out in all of the town. Chris hurries off to the police station and urges Claire to also leave town, but she does not do so until the woman next door smashes through the back door and attacks her. Claire pushes her away and uses Chris's bike to drive away, whereas Chris and his fellow cops gather in the police station briefing room, where the police chief named Irons arrives and reports that the cops Marini and Dooley, who were investigating the body at the Spencer mansion, are not responding, and that he has no idea about the alarms of the Umbrella Corporation. Leon asks about the Spencer mansion, so Chief Irons explains that it is the mansion of the founder of Umbrella Corporation, where he passed away. But then he rudely dismisses Leon to the front desk. Just then, Wesker receives a message on his pager, urging him to check his locker. Chief Irons scolds Wesker for being distracted before ordering all to put on their gear so they can find out the whereabouts of the missing cops and investigate the matter with the alarms. Before leaving, Wesker checks his locker to find a digital device, informing him of the end of Raccoon City at 6 a.m. Meanwhile, Dr. Birkin speeds through the city with his family and nearly hits Claire, who opens her helmet to stare at him, both recalling the time when she was woken up one night and told that she is being adopted by a family, with the hope that her brother will soon follow her to the same house. However, he drives away, and Claire sees a woman stumbling out of the diner with bloodshot eyes and a dazed expression. The truck driver rushes past her, driving recklessly with bloodshot eyes until his truck flips over right in front of the police station and explodes. However, Leon, who is sitting at the front desk, does not notice anything as he sleeps with his headphones on, until the driver with his body on fire walks towards him, and is shot dead by Chief Irons. The chief orders him to shut the gates and himself takes off with his belongings, leaving Leon in charge. Elsewhere, Chris and the other officers locate the vehicle of the missing cops from a chopper and find it overturned, with the cops gone. However, a mutated crow sits on the car, which Valentine shoots dead. The squad then walks through the forest to the Spencer mansion, where Wesker suggests that they should all split up, so they can find the missing cops sooner. But the others decide on pairing up, with Valentine deciding to accompany him, whereas Richard Aiken goes along with Chris. Back in the city, Chief Irons' escape is interrupted by a blockade of the exit by the Umbrella forces under a bridge. He encounters an Umbrella roadblock where security forces open fire on panicking civilians. Meanwhile, Leon sees people who have reanimated as zombies trying to get in through the main gate, whereas Chief Irons returns to the parking lot of the police station and finds himself ambushed by the truck driver's zombie dog. Feeling scared, he empties his gun at random sounds, making him vulnerable to the dog when Claire arrives and hits it to death with a fire extinguisher. They then go inside, and Chief Irons explains to Leon and Claire that the Umbrella Corporation has blocked all exits out of the city, as the zombies at the gate have increased in number. At the mansion, Wesker checks his digital device but refuses to give any explanation to Valentine, and soon Marini is found with his throat ripped open by a zombie, which they put down. However, a whole swarm of zombies attacks them, and while Chris struggles to get them off, Richard is killed by them. Meanwhile, in the chopper, the pilot Vickers is attacked by an undead, whereas Wesker finds a piano and plays a tune based on the instructions in the digital device, leading to the opening of a secret door. However, before they can enter it, Valentine spots Vickers' chopper coming through the window, prompting them to run before the helicopter crashes and explodes behind them. On the other hand, Leon and Claire go to the armory of the station, and Leon questions how Claire can handle guns so well while he is bad at it because of his reluctance towards shooting. Claire explains that she ran away at a very young age, which forced her to take care of herself. Moments later, Leon goes down to the lockups where he finds Ben Bertolucci begging him to let him out because an inmate in his cell is turning into a zombie. Leon is skeptical, but Ben snatches a gun from his suit and forces him to free him. However, the zombie kills him when it comes after Leon. Claire arrives to shoot it with a shotgun, after which she recognizes Ben and hands Leon a gun to take care of himself. This time, Leon immediately opens fire on the zombie that tries to attack him again. On the other hand, Chief Irons tries to contact Vickers, but fails, as his chopper lies burning in the room with Wesker and Valentine, who have barely survived the crash. Wesker gets up and uses the device to check the newly opened secret opening that lights up for him. He then confesses to Valentine that he is working with an unknown person who wants to expose the Umbrella Corporation, and that he is in it for the money, so that they can leave the town. However, Valentine is reluctant to accompany him, and they get into an argument, but a zombie attacks them. So Wesker kills it before running into the tunnels alone, disregarding Valentine's protests. Meanwhile, the zombie breaks through the prison's main gate into its courtyard, making Chief Irons contemplate an alternative way to get out of Raccoon City. He leads Claire and Leon to a police vehicle as a horde of zombies follows them through the prison, which they use to get to Claire's old orphanage. Inside, Claire asks the reason for going there, as it triggers her memories of being led into the corridor by Dr. Birkin and her subsequent escape. So Chief Irons explains that the orphanage hides a secret way to the Spencer mansion. Meanwhile, Leon notices something moving on the ceiling and sees Lisa Trevor, warning him about something through her gestures. He calls the others to come over. However, Lisa has disappeared by now, and a monster snatches Chief Irons from behind to the ceiling, spitting out only his decapitated head. Leon and Claire run across the corridor as the monster is an uber licker that chases them down. However, just in the nick of time, Lisa arrives to attack it and splits its jaw open with her wooden handcuffs, instantly killing it. She recognizes Claire and, upon her request, shows her the secret route to the Spencer mansion, revealing that it is a hidden elevator that is accessed via a secret door in the wall of a classroom. At the mansion, Chris works his way through the dark corridors, shooting down the odd zombie in his way, until he is ambushed by a whole crowd of the undead in the dark, prompting him to go all out and empty his guns into them. He is then left defenseless in the dark, and a reanimated Dooley attacks him, but Valentine arrives just in time to save him. She quickly tells him about Wesker's betrayal and the crash of the helicopter. Meanwhile, Claire and Leon get off from an elevator into a room that has a projector, with videos of the Umbrella Corporation experimenting on the orphans. She becomes emotional about it and tears the records of experimentation on children to pieces. On the other hand, Birkin operates on a live zombie that has its guts spread open on an operating table, while his wife and daughter watch in shock. They question Birkin about it, and he claims to be doing humanity's work. Just then, Wesker enters the room and orders Dr. Birkin to hand over the vials that he has stored in a briefcase. Birkin questions Wesker about his allegiance to distract and shoot him, but only manages to shoot him in the arm while he himself is shot multiple times. However, he still urges his family to get him his vials, and while doing that, his wife tries to shoot Wesker but is shot dead instead. Wesker blames Birkin for it, but he only laughs and drops a syringe as his life leaves his body, and his daughter hides nearby, aiming at Wesker when he is about to leave with the vials. However, before Wesker can shoot her, Valentine arrives and shoots him from behind, making him regret his actions as he lies dying, and tells the survivors that they should use the secret train station under the Umbrella Corporation to reach Gatlin before the town is bombed by the Umbrella Corporation. So Valentine, Chris, and Birkin's daughter try to find the way to the secret underground train station, and while they are busy at it, Dr. Birkin wakes up from the dead as his body starts to mutate into a monstrous form. He follows them down, and while Valentine and the little girl manage to squeeze through a narrow opening, Chris is forced to fight with him. Birkin discovers him easily and smashes through a door to get to him, after which he beats him up and almost kills him before Claire arrives with Leon to shoot Birkin down. Before dying, Birkin tries to apologize, but Chris, whose trust in him is now broken, shoots him dead. The siblings reconcile, and the survivors then desperately look for a way to the train station, while the dead body of Birkin's again starts to show movement as it mutates even further. Valentine is able to find the train station using Wesker's digital device, and the survivors get on the train as only 5 minutes remain until the destruction of Raccoon City. Leon starts the engine and the train sets off with the survivors thinking that they have finally made it, but then the clock strikes 6 and the bombs start to go off, with the shockwave derailing the train. Just then, the survivors hear someone walking on the roof of the train, and suddenly the roof is ripped apart by a huge mutated monster that has Birkin's head embedded in its body. It grabs a hold of Claire and is about to crush her to death, but she uses a knife to free herself while Chris keeps it at bay with a gun. However, Leon arrives with a rocket launcher that absolutely decimates the monster, finally freeing them. The survivors walk out of the tunnels of the train station on foot as the rubble of Raccoon City lies way behind them. Sometime later, Wesker gains consciousness as he struggles to get out of a body bag lying on an operating table in a dark room. He struggles free and limps to a corner as a woman approaches him, giving him sunglasses so that he can see better, claiming that to bring him back from the dead, they had to carry out certain procedures on him that have their side effects, like vision changes. Additionally, she reveals herself to him as Ada Wong and explains that many other specimens like him will be prepared in time. That's everything for the time being. Smash that like button to help me out and see you on the next one.